All right, welcome back to the Modern Revolution. My name is Pete Deely. I'm so glad that you're back again. We're just really lucky. Every week we get a chance to talk to new people and they're fascinating. However, I don't like to tell you ahead of time, like, hey, you should listen to this person because they're an authority or they're an expert or they've, whatever. I instead just want you to listen. And, as we get to the end of the conversation, we'll talk to you about where you can learn more about the guests. But for now, please just, you know, open your mind, give yourself a chance to listen to new perspectives, new experiences, and we'll go from here. And I'm I'm thrilled today. I get to talk to Mr. Rick Koenig. And Mr. Rick Koenig, thank you for spending time with me. I'm so grateful you're here.
Pete, it's my honor. Thank you for having me, sir.
So we like to start with the notion of what problem you are working on in the world, and you have a library upon library of stories and experiences. And I know
Yeah,
that like your life touches a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. But if I'm to
yeah.
ask you in general, like what type of problem, what type of impact are you trying to have out there in the world?
Just to get people to stop being so freaking lazy, man.
Okay.
Be accountable. Have some structure in their life. Be accountable,
Okay.
and be a man. That's it.
Hmm.
Be disciplined and be responsible.
Okay. So, a lot of people, they come to their perspective because the experiences in their life have brought them to value certain things over other things. And some people have like a very narrow range of experiences in their life, and they come to their perspectives because, you know, they've stayed within these narrow lanes and it worked for them. Other people, it's like a wide amplitude. They've had lots of different experiences. And I'm going to guess that your, amplitude of experiences from the highs to the lows are not typical, that many people will not have experienced the things that you've experienced. So when you say that you're like trying to get people to be responsible and accountable, can you talk to me a little bit about how these values kind of came to be so important to you?
As a kid, I grew up very, very angry.
Oh,
And
right,
anger is my most comfortable feeling. It really is. To this day, I
right.
just learned how to control it over decades.
Yes.
And it streamlined into doing martial arts. At a very young age, at the age of 4, my parents introduced me to martial arts. They enrolled me in my very first class. It was June 27th, 1972. And
Okay.
why I know that date is it's my birthday. It's when I
Right.
turned 4. And you had
Okay.
to be 4 years of age to take your first martial art class.
Right.
Back then, football, baseball, basketball, it was 7. We're
Okay.
talking about the 70s here.
Sure.
And they just knew I had some serious issues. And it was one of those deals that they didn't know how to really control it without just beating the heck out of me.
Right.
So they were figuring, hey, martial arts, let's give it a shot. And
Okay.
he introduced it to me. And my instructor, my sensei, my very first class broke my nose.
Oh my
And
goodness. As a
I
4-year-old?
tell people, oh, yeah, I mean, I deserved it. He didn't do it on purpose. I mean,
Sure,
he
sure.
hit me on purpose. I don't think he was meaning to break my nose. But
Yeah.
honestly, that's when I fell in love with it, man. I was like, wow,
Okay.
man, this is all right, man. I actually enjoyed the feeling. Like getting punched in the face was an eye opener, and at the same point of time, I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
And
right.
I came back the next day, and he says, "Damn, kid, you're back." I'm
Wow.
like, "Yeah, why?" Eyes are all freaking
Yeah,
black, swollen up. I'm like, "I love it." And he goes,
right.
"Oh man, you are going to be my problem," and I was, and I mean, he groomed me. He really did, and he helped me channel those anger issues the best that he could.
Right.
Couple different stints in juvenile detention center helped as well.
Okay.
But again, like I said, it was just one of those deals that it propelled me, and it gives me my thought process to this day
Okay.
because of again when I'm talking about accountability, being disciplined, being responsible, things of that nature. So many people lack it, and I am a very intense individual.
Right.
It drives a lot of people away, but I embrace it. It
Okay.
does. It keeps me alive and
Mhm.
it keeps me going. And again,
Right.
it could be too much for some, and I've lost clients because of it. But so be it, man. I'm not their cup of tea. They're not my students.
Okay. So here you are a child, 4 years of age. You're a baby
Yeah,
child. Like you're not even, your mental processes to even understand why you would be attracted to this are not developed enough to know, this is we're in the back of the brain, back in the lizard brain. I mean, this resonated with you on a primal sort of level. So you start at 4 and you accept the harsh discipline of martial arts, and that kind of, how does that affect your childhood then? Are you with it? How long are you with it, first of all? Are you a lifelong
51
practitioner of
years.
martial arts? So you've
50,
never
50.
stopped?
Well, I've had
I mean,
breaks. I had
right,
breaks.
right.
Like
Okay.
when I went to prison, I really couldn't, even though I was teaching the COs
Right.
different techniques, they wanted to learn the joint manipulations and the chokeholds, and it
Sure.
gave me extra privileges as well. So I mean, I took advantage of it. They knew of me, my background, things of that nature, and
Right.
at the same point in time, I used it for my best interest as well. Um, but yeah, like I said, I would say more on than off, but
Okay.
I've been off probably the one of the longest periods of time right now, with the exception of prison, just because of just my injuries. A lot of
Right.
injuries.
Sure.
There's no such thing as a free lunch. And
Right.
at the age of 40, that's when I started having major injuries. When I
Okay.
turned 50, I was actually in the best shape of my life at the age of 50, but
Okay.
the injuries kept on continuing.
Yeah.
Things were just breaking down and replacements, and it kind of, I want more longevity out of life. I don't want to be in a wheelchair. So
Yes.
I
Right.
navigated more to the weight training aspect of things because I can control that
Right.
element. When I'm on the mats and I'm rolling around with these kids that are in their 20s, getting
Sure.
out of the academy, getting out of the military, I got a bullseye on my back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a second degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, numerous other black belts as well, judo, taekwondo. But with a bullseye on your back, they come at you pretty hard,
For
and
sure.
I can withstand it. But at the same point in time, it just winds up lasting longer. The pain, the
Well, yeah.
recovery
Without it.
aspect is a lot longer.
So in the beginning, what was the first discipline that you came across? Was it
Taekwondo,
Taekwondo? And then, okay,
taekwondo,
as you
Korean karate.
Korean karate, and then
Yeah.
what did that lead to next? What was your next black belt?
Boxing.
Okay.
I was fortunate. I was able to go to Joe Frazier's gym in Northeast Philadelphia. Um, my father had some really good connections and things of
Oh
that
my
nature in
goodness.
pizzerias. So I used to spar with Joe Frazier's son, Melvin, and he was a
That's
little
right.
older than me. Joe Jr. is a lot younger than me, but I went in there and I was basically the only white kid in there,
Mm-hmm.
and they were headhunting. They were coming in, and again, I was accepting it. I
Right.
was, and again, they're like, "This is a crazy white boy coming in here, man." And I mean, I wasn't the best at it, but I hung in there,
For sure.
and I enjoyed it. I really did. I mean, they call it the sweet science for a reason. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
you don't want to mess with a boxer. You don't, man. And in
Yeah.
no way, shape, or form am I saying I'm anything as a professional boxer, but I know how to hold my hands up, keep my chin down, and walk through life
Right.
with my head up.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. So so did you find judo next or jujitsu next? What?
Judo was tough. Judo was tough. I
Yeah.
actually went into Muay Thai after
Okay.
that. Reason being, at that point in time, when we're looking at the 80s right there was still dojo storming. And that means that schools would go to other schools. And if the instructor beat your instructor, you became their student.
Wow.
And yeah, I was at a matter of fact, guy Gordon Pritchard still owns the school in South Jersey, took over from our sensei. And a guy, oh man, he's in Arizona too. Matter of fact, Bob Harmel.
Okay.
It's spelled with a K, and he
Okay.
has a school out in Arizona, and he's a Muay Thai instructor. The guy's phenomenal,
Yeah.
and he's a badass.
Yes.
And
Yes.
they came in and they cleaned house. I wasn't there that night, but at the same point in time, I started training at his academy in Philadelphia,
Okay.
and that was an eye opener too. The 8 limbs and using elbows and knees, and I'm like, oh
Yes.
man,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
this is phenomenal, man. This is great. I wanted to go to Thailand, and I missed that trip, but I was actually grooming myself for MMA.
Okay.
Jiu-jitsu hit me when I was at a guy Steve Maxwell's gym in Philadelphia as well. And at the time, Steve was a blue belt, and he had Hoist Gracie come in. He had
Oh my
Helson,
goodness. Wow.
he had Horian, he had Henzo.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
there's thousands of Gracies. I mean, when people they'll tell me, this is when I know they're full of shit. They'll say, "Well, I train with the Gracies." I'm like, "Okay, well, which ones? What
Right.
lineage?" And they're
Right.
like, "Well,
Right.
no, the Gracies." I'm like, "Bro, there's like 100,000 of them, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a tribe, man. It's like Elio had 9 children. 7 of them were boys, and his older brother Carlos, had 23, and Carlson was his oldest. So between the two brothers, and that's not including the other brothers, I mean, you can just imagine what their offspring was.
Yes, right. Yeah.
I remember just going into Steve's school and just looking at these guys, and I'm like, man, they got funny accents. They're rolling around in pajamas. They're very polite, very nice. And I took a class, and it was like they were folding up their laundry, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Bending me back. And I'm like, whoa. And they're doing it with a smile on their face.
Oh, I know.
And it's still, I fell in love with it. And we had one major snowstorm, and that scared him away.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I think it was Hoist that slipped on ice, and he's like, man, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
You know, coming from Brazil. And a lot of guys were navigating to the California area.
Right.
Gracie came here in 1983.
Right.
And he was in California. And then when Horian came over from Brazil, he was in California.
Right.
So, like I said, they all started to navigate to California. And like I said, you had Helson that kept schools on the Northeast, Henzo, which I became a student of Henzo's. Man, you had a few others, but like I said, I became a prodigy of Henzo.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, we're talking, for those of you who may not be familiar with some of these names, so we're talking about someone who's trained with the royalty. So, most people, at least our age, are going to know Joe Frazier, that as a name. But if you're listening about Henzo, and these are the luminaries in that. I have another podcast, by the way, called The Jiu-Jitsu Mindset, and I've got a chance to interview Pedro Sauer and Robert Drysdale.
Pedro's a legend.
Yeah, so I got a chance
to. That's Hicks. Actually, Hickson signed my black belt certificate.
Yeah,
so
that's
extraordinary. Them, everybody wants to say, well, it's a fake belt or this. I'm like, that's Hickson Gracie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So so we're talking about the Michael Jordan of jiu-jitsu when you hear Hickson. For those of you who are listening, I'm a Gracie Barra, athlete, but a beginner, just a blue belt.
Flavia then.
Yes.
You know Flavia.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I trained with his brother for over a decade.
Oh my goodness. Well, it is.
Beats.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. All right. So
it was Henzo Gracie's very first black belt, and then Matt Sauer followed after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm interviewing Samuel Braga tomorrow, by the way. So,
that's beautiful, bro.
Yeah.
You got legends, man.
Yeah, they are
I'm
legends.
Just a peon. You know what I mean? But
well, I'm just asking questions. I'm not fighting them. I'll tell you that right now. Well, okay. So you're here. You are. You have a lifelong discipline of martial arts, and as we move along through your life, I mean, how does it serve you as, say, a teen? I mean, because here you are, you're equipped, you're kind of weaponized, right? Like you talk about anger, right, as like your most comfortable emotion, and now you're trained.
Yeah.
You're kind of dangerous, I'd say.
Very much so.
Okay. So what was that like being a teenager, where your brain still, like at 4 years old, you're just reacting, and
got me in a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
got me in the juvenile detention center twice. I was 9 at once. I was 13 at the other, and it was gladiator school. I mean, you had to fight every day.
Yeah.
So, like I said, man, I went in there like, you're a kid, you think you're a badass, but now you're taken away from your family, man. It's like, oh man, what's going on here? The next thing you know, you're getting sucker punched, and you're not just fighting one-on-one. You're getting jumped.
Right.
I don't care how much jiu-jitsu or any martial arts 7-on-1, listen, man, you can be a badass, but this isn't a Steven Seagal movie, man. This is real life.
Yes.
You're going to take some lumps, man. And especially when they know, you get in there and you start throwing down and people are dropping, man, and they're coming in with reinforcements. They're like, oh, yeah, we know we got to come in at least 5 to 7 deep on this dude because of he knows what he's doing.
Right.
But at the same point in time, it did evolve me into the pecking order as well.
Right.
So, after a couple months, they learned.
What brought you, so 9 and 13, what were the circumstances in which brought you to the juvenile detention center? I mean, what'd you do?
Fights.
Okay. So was it were you in the schoolyard? Were you in the street? Like what?
Everywhere.
Both,
I was
everywhere.
in church. I was in the schoolyard. I was in the supermarket.
Right.
You name it, I was there, and I was doing damage, and I had to pay the consequences.
So
You know, it was one of those deals. The judge got sick of seeing me. That's
yeah,
it. You know, and that's when I went the first time. And the second time, he's like, "Yeah, you haven't learned your lesson again. Well, I think you need a little more time. You know, now
yeah.
you're the property of the state of New Jersey."
So you're a disciplined young person, and generally I have found that the context in which many martial art schools operate is one about personal honor and personal,
Yeah,
which can be translated into, hey, every slight needs to be defended. But most often, I feel like it's in a moral context. So in some ways, I feel like you were being taught not just to be weaponized as someone who could fight, but there was probably instruction saying, you know what, we don't fight unnecessarily. But were you in conflict with your own teaching at that time? Were you cognizant that, like, hey, your sensei was teaching you to be different than you in fact were being? Or did you feel like, no, this is what I'm being taught to be like?
no, it was more or less. I didn't put up with anybody's shit, man.
Okay.
And I knew it was elevated into those circumstances to begin with. So I took the bull by both horns, and I just took control, man. And that was something my father taught me. He was from Flatbush, New York,
Right.
and raised in an orphanage by nuns in the 30s, the Great Depression. And
Right.
he told me, kid, always get the first shot in. If you feel as though there's an altercation, I mean, this is coming from my old man.
Sure.
He's my idol.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess it was a little, you know, he would be upset with me, but at the same point in time, I think he was proud of me as well,
Right.
and like I said, I mean, I paid the consequences for it, but it wasn't something that, I'll be honest with you, our sensei was old school as well.
Yeah.
And it was one of those deals that, this is to defend yourself. If you feel as though that you're in threat of any type of violent attack, that,
Right.
you definitely come out. You want to be on top.
Right.
And that was my mindset. And again, having anger issues to this day, I still have them.
Sure.
At 55, I can contain it better, but I typically won't walk away, man. I won't. It's just, it irks me, man. And I want to beat myself up more than anything. Afterwards, I'm like, I cannot believe I just pussied out. You know what I mean? And I remember my wife, she turned around to me. She goes, why didn't you just fight him? You would have been so much more happier. And I'm like, I know.
Hey.
And that's it. I want to beat myself up. And again, I talk about discipline and things of that nature. We're not
Sure.
all perfect, and we
Right.
have
Right.
all issues, and that's what keeps me driving to this day. But I'm a firm believer, man. Don't put up with anybody's shit, man.
So there you are. I mean, so it sounds to me like when you look back at your stints at 9 and 13, you're okay with those stints. That the
I'm
behavior was
fine.
like you don't think you were out of line, and you did what you had to do is kind of what I'm hearing.
I paid the consequences. That I would do it all
Yeah.
over again. I
Okay.
wouldn't change it. I
Okay.
wouldn't change it. They all got the lesson they needed, and hopefully it changed their life for the best.
Right. Right.
Maybe
Okay.
maybe had them thinking twice before they wound up moving their mouth. Who
Yeah.
knows?
I don't
I
know.
mean,
Yeah. Tyson's famous for saying, we social media has taken away the reality of the fact that you speak a certain way, there are physical consequences to that up until now, right? Like everyone's behind a screen
well,
and
everybody's carrying guns too. I mean, where I'm at here, everybody has a piece. It's
yeah,
not like Northeast where it's contained. I mean, people are open. It's something. I have a felony. I can't possess a weapon.
right,
So again, that kind of woke me up on like the road rage and things of that nature, where I'm not popping out of my car. I
right.
can just take a couple deep breaths and realize, man, that could be somebody's, son, brother,
Yeah.
cousin, whatever. I just try to talk myself down with that. So I do have road rage. Um, but yeah, like I said, people just carry guns now, and they don't think twice about blasting you.
So, all right, we've the, there's a ton of stories I think wrapped up in a few things you've dropped into the conversation. So we've talked about prison, we talked about felony. So why don't we just talk about that? I mean, that's a
Yeah,
that's not something that many people have experienced, and so I'm pretty sure that most of the people listening right now are not going to have experienced some of the things you've experienced. So let's get into that part of the story. How did that happen, and what were the circumstances?
my father had pizzerias for 47 years. So I,
Okay.
I had a lot of uncles, you know
Right.
what I mean? And we got involved in something that we should have. And you know, that is a regret that I have this day. We got into distribution of cocaine,
Okay.
and there was a lot of it.
Okay.
And when we got caught, we got caught as a father and son team.
Right.
So they didn't have enough evidence on me, but they had it on my father.
Okay.
And this was in the early 90s. And when they turned around, and obviously we weren't going to snitch or anything of that nature, they wanted the pizzeria, they wanted everything, they confiscated. But you know, my father had that one particular pizzeria for, I think it was like 23 years. It was over 20 years.
Okay.
So they couldn't prove that it was bought from drug money and things of that nature. Okay.
Okay.
And again, man, that's one of my regrets, because I think drugs are horrible. I really do. I lost my older son
Oh my goodness.
because of drugs, and
Okay.
you know, that's karma debt. I'm a firm believer in karma as well. So when that went down, we were both again. I pleaded guilty to the same sentence as him to reduce his term, and
Okay.
that's something that he fully was not happy with.
Sure.
He told me, no, you do not agree. You do not cooperate whatsoever. I said, I'm cooperating on getting you out earlier so you can be around your grandson. And I said, that's it. I stood to it. And he didn't talk to me for about 9 months. And now you got to understand, we were together.
Yeah.
You know, that whole term. You know, I did 5 years. He did 7.
Okay.
And he didn't talk to me for about 9 months because he was pissed, man. He was really upset. And we were the very first father and son team to go down. And this is New Jersey State Penitentiary, maximum security, DOC. We are in general population.
Mm-hmm.
We're in there with the meanest, you know. And
sure.
But you know, I think I was groomed for it. I mean, I was involved with drugs, but at the same time, I wasn't a drug user. You know what I mean? And so I stayed away from the drug game when I was in prison. Stayed away from the gambling. Didn't get into trouble where most people, you know, people think about getting raped in prison and things of that nature. That generally does not happen unless they're trying to prove a point.
Okay.
And then at that point in time, they do whatever order is set out. You know, whoever the shot caller is, they're going to call the shots and it's going to get done. But it's typically, you know, you owing money to somebody because you lost on the bet, or for drugs. I mean, drugs are just runs rampant through the penitentiary. There's more drugs I've seen in the penitentiary than I've seen on the street.
No kidding. Okay.
No kidding, man. And you know, you have all depending. And I was in 11 institutions when I was in Jersey because I was in transit a lot.
Okay.
Rahway was probably the roughest. Trenton State was pretty tough. We wound up in Leesburg, again, maximum security. But then you wound up getting good time, and then you rank your way up into oh God, I'm having a brain fog here. But it's you go to an honor camp kind of type of deal.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Where you got guys in honor camps that are lifers.
Okay.
But they moved up in status, that they were able to get that privilege as long as they don't mess up. And they're the ones that typically don't want to mess with nothing.
Sure.
You know, they got more freedom out there. They get more movement.
Yeah.
They don't have a barbed wire fence around them.
Sure.
And they kind of know that they're going to get caught if they try to do something stupid. At the same point in time, they don't want to mess with the freedom they have.
Right.
So they're pretty, you know, I've met a lot of guys that, you know, multiple murders, things of that nature, nicest guys in the world. And so my father moved up to the honor camp fairly quick. I wound up going out with him. Then I caught a charge out there for fighting.
Right.
Go figure, right? and then they sent me back behind the wall again for a year and a half until I made status to come back out.
Right.
And at that time, my father was running the ODR, which is the officer's dining room.
Okay.
He's doing the books. He's ordering all the food. I mean, it's like, what is that movie?
Goodfellas. Oh, yeah. Shawshank. Yeah, sure.
That was my old man. You know what I mean? He was, he was kicking back. And, you know, when I went out there, they rolled out the red carpet for me. I'm like, hold on. So typically when you go out there, you go into a barracks where you have about 100 different other inmates with you. And then from the barracks, you go into cottages where you start off with a 6-man room, build up status, a 4-man room, build up status, a 2-man room. Then finally you get to a 1-man room.
Right.
And they shipped me right to a 1-man room.
Right.
TV's in there, fans in there. I'm like,
okay.
And they're like, we'll explain to you. Your father will explain to you. Well, he was running the ODR.
Okay.
So, like I said, I mean, it was like, I say it's a breeze, man. I mean, it is. I consider Branson prison, honestly, with comfortable visits. I really do. I don't know if you know anything about Branson or not. I mean, I've been here now 14 years, and I love it. It's home. I'm happy, but it's boring. I mean, it's boring. I mean,
For
these
certain
shows out here,
conjugals.
I don't know, man.
So
It's not my cup of tea.
when we talked at the beginning, like, look, you want people to be less lazy, to be more responsible.
Yeah,
And
man.
and you take a look at your life, I feels like very objectively, like, okay, 9 and 13, I behaved in a way that I should have behaved and I paid my price, and that's that. And then
Yeah,
you get a little older. Now you're looking at some things that maybe those decisions aren't the best decisions. And you're feeling like, well, I wish I had made different choices. So when you
yep,
think about like having paid such severe costs, right, for those
yeah.
decisions,
Consequences, yeah.
you had to deal with the consequences. What types of things would you say, hey, learn from what I did so you don't make the same type of mistakes? Give me some of that wisdom.
Bingo. And that's what it's all about, man. I can only tell you what worked for me.
Yeah,
And
tell us
again,
about that. Yeah,
people say, how did you live the life you live? And like you said, you read my story. I'm like, man, I'm 55.
right,
I got involved with a lot of things. I wasn't lazy. I
right, right,
mean,
right,
I have early to this day, I wake up at 2:30 a.m. Not a day that I miss. I do
right.
not miss. I do not hit that snooze alarm. And I have an online business where, I mean, I might be talking to a client in another state till 10 o'clock, midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I don't sleep. So
Right,
again, I mean, regardless of the time I go to sleep, I'm
right,
waking up at 2:30 a.m.
right,
And it's something, again, I feel as though people that sleep in, man, there's a reason behind it. I mean, we're not promised today. We're not promised the
right.
next 5 minutes, let alone tomorrow. And you
Sure.
want to sleep your life away. What's your problem? What's going wrong in your life? I
Right.
got roll call, and this is something I learned in prison,
Okay.
where when you wake up in the morning, you had to sound off.
Right.
Okay, so you get in the program, and if you're on lockdown, you're doing your burpees inside your cell, your
Okay.
6x8, but you're calling out to your people, and you're making everybody accountable.
Okay.
And a lot of times I'd wake up early too, because you get to use the facilities before anybody else does.
Okay.
You're prepping yourself. I mean, you're taking a dump with, 20 other cats, man, and there's no barriers.
Yeah.
It sucks. I like
Sure.
to take a shower, and things of
Right.
that nature without it, because people want to sleep in. They want to sleep in, and that's just, it seems to be human nature. Um, but again, even with my clients now, I just tell them straight up, here's the deal. I don't care if you're not at the gym. I don't care if it's a day off. When I do roll call at 2:30 a.m., and typically I'll do it at 3. I don't want their dinger to go off on them and things. I want you to honestly answer that roll call as soon as you see it. Or when
Okay.
you're up. I'm going to send this out to you every single day. Answer
Okay.
it.
Right.
Because if I see a pattern where you're not answering to me until 12 o'clock,
Right.
noon, 2 in
Right.
the afternoon, 9, I want to know why.
Right.
What are you doing? Were you
Right.
out partying?
Right.
Are you depressed? Do you
Right.
have anxiety? Why are you sleeping? Because now we can address the issue at hand.
Sure.
It's a self-mastery system. That's it. And I let them know, be prepared. Watch what you wish for. Because if you want the 100% Rick Koenig, you're going to get 100%. But as soon as you
Okay.
give me 99, you get nothing from me.
Okay. So
Bottom line.
yeah, you warned us at the start. You're like, hey, I am intense. And that's not for everybody. And
Yeah.
sometimes, you know what? People like they're ready to sign up for Mr. Rick Koenig. And some people they sign up and maybe they don't really realize what they got themselves into. And when you think of the outcome of adopting this discipline, like what is the difference of the life lived with this discipline versus the life lived without this discipline? What is somebody going to get out of this that they would like? What are they trading? Because what you're saying, hey, give up a certain point of view and take on this other point of view. What are
There's going
they?
to be so much better in everything in their life.
Yeah, tell me about that.
If they're married, they're going to have a better marriage. If they have
Right,
kids, they're going to be a better example for your kids, because
right.
your kids always are looking for your weakness, and your weakness is their way out. So
Okay,
if they see a fat slob of a father, they're going to be a fat slob of a kid. If you
okay.
see a fat kid, it's typically they got a fat father and mother. You know what I mean? They're learning that bullshit off of their parent, man. And
Right,
that should
right.
be a form of child abuse, man. I think diapers should be,
Yeah,
saying,
that's
"What are you
interesting.
doing?" I mean, it disgusts me. It does.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not here to fat bash or anything like that. But if you're trying to work on your problem, man, I'm all 40, man.
Right,
I got a lot of people that are overweight. You know what I
right.
mean? But
Sure.
they're in my gym. They're trying to get better. They're losing the weight. They're following my program, my systems I have, and it
Right.
works. They're
Yeah.
battle tested. When we were talking about martial arts, I mean, that's all I wanted to know. Everything that I was learning, was it real?
Right.
Could this be
Right.
used in the real world? Why am I
Yes.
learning this if it doesn't work?
Right.
And there were some things that didn't, man. There's a lot of jiu-jitsu moves now that people are streamlining the more competition jiu-jitsu. Well, you do an inverted guard on me, man, I will knock your teeth in. And you don't have to be a smart guy and know how to fight to learn how to stomp somebody's teeth out. So,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and I tell people straight out, man, when I hit that ground, my first intentions are to get right back on my feet.
Right. Right.
That's
Yeah.
it. Because if they got
Yeah.
a buddy with them or three buddies with
Yeah.
them,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
you're
Yeah.
gonna get your ass handed to you, man.
Right. Well, it's funny. I mean, in that particular world, I mean, in the world of violence, I feel like there are many different levels, and I've talked to veterans, and we talk about violence in the realm of war, and
Yeah,
that is not the
absolutely.
same violence as the violence of the streets. And the violence of the streets has a whole bunch of different levels within that. And then the violence of competitive sports has a whole set of levels as well. And so depending on, where you find yourself, and in my mind, like humility is a very big lesson that martial arts offers us, because there's never a time in which you could ever be sure you know the outcome of any given situation. And so everything has to be approached, in my mind, with the right humility, seeking the right outcome between people, because things can be more dangerous than you appreciate. So not, as you talk about, Henzo, and these are very pleasant people. These are very polite people. That should
Oh
not be,
man,
but that should not,
phenomenal,
right? Phenomenal. So it would be a
phenomenal.
mistake to think politeness is somehow or other, something that doesn't belie a tiger
Don't take it
underneath
for a
it.
weakness.
Don't take it for a
Henzo's,
weakness.
Henzo's brother Hein passed away, and you talk about, man, he was a bad dude. I mean, he was a beast.
Yeah, yeah,
And I won't get into that story because it's not for me to say.
right.
But like I said, he passed away, and but yeah, you talk about somebody that could get down, man. This guy, I mean, he was a bull in the china closet. Yeah, I mean, I seen him rip through people. I mean,
Yeah,
effortlessly,
yeah,
effortlessly. Never even hit the ground.
yeah,
He didn't even show his ground skills. He
sure.
was just standing up and just,
Yeah.
knocking the starch out of everyone.
I have a friend who
Yeah,
is an extraordinary athlete, super strong, super like amazing athlete. Went to Thailand, trained for a year in a Muay Thai gym,
yeah,
trained as if he was a professional Muay Thai, had one fight with an ordinary professional Muay Thai fighter. And wow, and it ended that night in the hospital. And it was a great like example to me of like there are different levels of understanding of things, and
yeah,
there are ways that if you're steeped in certain things from you come out of the womb and you come into it and you go and try to challenge like that level of mastery, you
yeah.
can have many skills, but in that particular domain, you are unlikely to come out on top. I've interviewed a gentleman named Professor Jason Hawkins. He told me this uh, great story, and we're talking about he's got, like you, a number of different black belts, and we're talking about a Tai Chi master that he had studied with, and he was saying,
Oh, yeah.
let's say you knew somebody and they were a student of this martial art for 40 years, and
Right.
then you knew somebody and they were a student for 5 years, and you asked them to do a set of movements, and they both did the movements perfectly. Do you think you could tell the difference between the person who'd been doing it for 40 years and the person doing it for five? And the point for me of the story is that there are subtleties, there are things you can't see. Hickson calls it invisible jujitsu when he talks about jujitsu that come over a
Yes.
length of time. So when I listen
Yeah.
to you talk for all of the things that you've been through, you have been practicing discipline since you got your nose broke at 4. You showed up the
Yeah.
next day and you're like, I'm going to be comfortable while I'm uncomfortable, and that to me, that there's fruit in that, right?
Perfect.
There's fruit in that discipline that you can't find unless you're
Yeah.
growing that tree, right? I mean, it's just,
Man, that's beautifully said, bro. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you anymore. 100%. 100%. You know, I mean, you got to be a student of the game, and you got to embrace it. And you know, unfortunately, I'm watching jiu-jitsu right now get so watered down that it's heartbreaking. And I watched it happen with traditional martial arts, you know, with karate and
sure.
everything. And it just comes down to money and things of that nature. And I'm just watching it happen, and it breaks my heart, you know,
Yeah.
because it is a martial art. There is an honor. You have to be humble, you know, especially
Right.
when you're around your peers and your
Yeah.
instructor. I mean, that's how you get your nose broke. You know what I mean? It's pop
Indeed, you
off,
do.
you learn real quick. Right. So you got to know when to pop
Yeah.
off and when to shut your mouth too. I mean,
Well,
bottom
yeah.
line,
Yeah.
don't be an idiot because you'll wind up in the grave quick. And
So,
you know, I'm
yeah,
just watching it. I'm watching it, and it's just, you know, unfortunate. I mean, it became Americanized, and nothing against the Brazilians. I love them to death, but you know, they had it for a long period of time.
sure.
They really did, and you know, you have now white belts learning black belt moves when there was
Yeah.
structure. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There was a process. And Henzo, I tell you what, by the time that you're a purple or brown belt, even though it's more frowned upon on the Northeast and probably California, you could run your own school.
Sure.
That's it. I mean, he has a very structured program, and that's why when I came out here, there was no jujitsu. I was
Right.
a purple belt, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "What? I can't
Yeah.
open up a school. I don't have a black belt here." And they're like, "Well,
Right.
Rick, the nearest black belt
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
in St. Louis, and that's
Right.
a
Right.
4-hour trip."
Yeah.
And they're like, you need to start a school. And I'm like, well, I'm not getting hired to do anything else around here, man.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah. Yeah.
know.
That's well, I
So
will
I
tell you, I'm optimistic about jiu-jitsu's future, because there are many, many more people in it than wouldn't otherwise be in it. And out of that sorting process, it's better. I'll tell you what, you give me somebody who's trained for a year weekly, like that, meaning just like, meaning not like you, just somebody who like went in, and then you give me that same person not trained. I don't care if they're learned more sports stuff. They are a more capable person than otherwise. And so
no
I
doubt.
appreciate what you're saying. It's sort of like boxing. I mean, boxing, it's it's still alive out there, even if we don't have quite the boxing culture that we have had earlier. You and I are
I miss
effectively the
it.
same age. I do too. I mean, for me, boxing was my martial art. That was my first martial art. I was
Yeah.
12. I got a chance to
Yep.
hit the heavy bag next to Thomas Hearns and Jerry
Oh
Cooney. And,
yeah.
I got a
Oh,
chance to, yeah. So people that are familiar
the
to us,
legends.
yeah, they were wonderful
Tiger
experiences.
Hearns, man. Great fights.
Hagler was my man. I wish I had got a chance to train
I
next to
met
him.
him in an elevator in Atlantic City.
I hope
He
he
had the
was a prince.
smallest head on the broadest shoulders I ever saw in my life. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's when he fought. It was Hagler Hearns fights in Atlantic
Yeah.
City, New
Yeah.
Jersey.
Oh my gosh.
And Hagler was so tall, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
great fights. Tor Gotti against
Yes,
Mickey
yes.
Ward,
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
legends.
Those fights are as good of fights as you will
Well, if
find
you
in
remember the
history.
Blue Horizon in Philadelphia, that's where my father used to take me. You know, him
Okay.
and all his
Okay.
buddies with the cigars, and we're what I grew up in the Blue Horizon. You know,
Okay.
and it's funny that we talk about Joe Frazier because there's so many kids I'll say that name to, and they're like, "Who's that?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh man, you
Well,
got
Rick,
to be kind of smoking Joe, man." Like,
yeah, because we are old,
wow,
Rick. We are old, brother. Like that's
no,
why.
we're
Like
not, man.
you're,
I know, I know.
like you just can't. They were talking about ancient history for most of the people around there. But you and I came through the same history, watched the same people. Hagler was one of those people that was very inspirational to me about
Man,
discipline because I felt
yeah,
like I think who does he lose? He lose to like an Antifermo or something. He loses for the first fight by decision, and he says, "You know what? I can't. Next time I fight this guy, I'm gonna knock him out because I can't afford to take a chance." And he came back. He knocked him out. It was just, or maybe it was Alexis Arguello. I can't remember because I get Duran. All those people kind of like,
well, Roberto
that.
Duran, right,
Yeah.
right. I remember him, Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray. There was a lot
Yes.
of battles between those two guys. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
great fight. Sugar Ray again, another. I mean, you don't find them like that. And if they're around anymore, I mean, they're not being seen.
Yeah.
You know, boxing really took a turn. You know, I mean, really, you look back at it, you can't even see the fights on TV anymore as much, and it's just
Yeah.
becoming something of the past. It's a shame. MMA took over.
Yeah. I
MMA
will
took
be.
over.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see, I feel like the world's getting sorted into smaller and smaller communities, and hopefully there will be some charismatic boxing figure that kind of brings people back to the sweet science. Because, I mean, for
Yeah,
me, it was Muhammad Ali as a kid in the
yeah,
70s. It was impossible
absolutely.
not to be entranced by, that human being. He was just so amazing.
Amazing. Amazing man. And I remember watching Tyson in the Olympics
Right,
and hearing
right.
his punches, man. And I knew as a young kid, man. I mean, I was probably what, I don't know, 10, 11,
Sure.
maybe a little older than that. Now I was a teenager. But I
Right.
remember hearing his punches, man, and I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna do it, man. He's gonna do it.
Yeah.
And he was great. I was just talking to my students about Rocky Marciano.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different tactics that boxers would use, like weighing the head down,
Sure.
beating the body so the head drops. And Marciano he beat up the arms. He'd beat
Yeah.
your arms up so you couldn't lift them anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great technique.
Well, tell me another undefeated boxer, and I'll tell you how great that technique that is, right? So, as we, because I know you and I are going to be here for the next 10 hours if I don't be disciplined. Tell me a little bit about, let's say someone's listening and they go, all right, I'm not ready to go get on the black belt journey, but I want to make a step in the direction that Rick's talking about. Like,
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about sleep. Tell me something else. Like, if someone's listening and they go, I know I want more discipline and I'm looking like, what's a good place for me to start? What would you tell that guy?
Are we talking about martial arts or just life in general?
Life in general. Life in general.
Wake up earlier.
I like it.
Bottom line. That's one of the highest forms of gratitude that you can give
Nice.
your God, the universe, whatever
Yeah,
you want
yeah,
to
yeah.
call it.
Sure.
Because no one wants to get out of a comfortable bed. It's nice and
Right.
warm. It might be cold out or the air conditioner's
Yeah.
on. No one likes that. Okay.
Right.
Don't hit that snooze button because you're
Yeah.
already starting off with an L.
Yeah, yeah.
Wake up with the win. And you don't have to be as extreme as me and wake up at 2:30 a.m.
Right.
But whatever you're getting up at now, set it back a half an hour.
Right.
Set it back an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because let me tell you something. From the time I get up until I put my head on my pillow, my day is full.
Yeah.
And then and if it's not, I'm adding an additional task. I got cue cards right here. I mean,
Nice.
I look at these every day. What do I got to do? What do I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
to do? And I
Right.
keep on adding to them.
Yeah.
You can always sit and read more. There's always things
Yes,
that you
yes.
can do to better yourself. And
Right.
that's the thing. I mean, like, complacency kills. And that's the problem. I understand you got family time, but you know what? When you have that family time, make it family time.
Right,
Embrace it.
right. Yeah.
And what I mean is if you get into that mundane routine where it's just becoming a bore to you, that's your fault.
Right.
That just means that you're not fulfilling the rest of your day with activities that make you a better person.
Right.
So again, like I said, I mean, I'm a huge person on no vices. I mean, I do vape. You know what I mean? I don't know what the heck made me start doing that, but um, I believe there shouldn't be really any vices. I really do. Like, definitely stay away from drugs. Definitely
Right.
stay away. Even the people that drink, man. Like, I listen. I might be self righteous. I was an alcoholic. That's why, and maybe
Right.
that's
Right.
why I'm a little more, little concerned about that. But I mean, if you just do the studies on what alcohol does to the body and to the
Yes.
brain,
Yeah.
I mean, it destroys you. It really
Yeah.
does. And it's just something that, if you don't have to drink, why?
Right.
Why put yourself in situations too? I mean, like, I worked in nightclubs and bars,
Sure.
from 18 until I was 27. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
off and on. So I
Yeah.
mean, there was times that you look at it, nothing good happens after 12 o'clock midnight. Nothing,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I've spent a lot of time on the road for jobs I've had in my life, and I've seen a lot of bad behavior between married men and running around. And
yeah,
a good buddy of mine had often had was on the road with me, and we would look at those people doing that, and they, we'd say, you can't stop the train at 2:30 in the morning in the hotel room. That train started when you started drinking at 6 that night, and now your judgment and is like declining,
judgment.
declining, declining. And now you're making decisions that, you may not really, really want to make, just because you've put yourself in this
Judgment.
situation. So I feel like discipline, when I listen to you talk, I hear a man saying, get more life, in your life. You know, I mean, if
Yeah,
you're not up and
100%.
at it, then you're kind of wasting the gift.
Well, the problem is a lot of people don't have the right direction. And that's
Right.
why I tell people to go onto my online
Yeah, tell us
courses,
about
my
that. Yeah,
system.
yeah. Let's talk about
Yeah,
that.
it's something I actually started when COVID hit, and it did very well. Unfortunately, the investor I had pulled the plug because he had a problem with the IT guy, and it was nothing
Okay.
with me. I mean, our first month we raked in about 15,000. That's
Wow.
not what we netted; it's what we grossed.
Right.
But it was a nice little start, especially being
Sure.
here in Branson, Missouri. It was good change to have. And this guy is a millionaire. I mean, to him, that was just a drop in the bucket. Ego got in the way, and I'm still with the IT guy. After I went through my trials and tribulations with my son and getting separated and had to get a hip replacement, lost some of my students because
Sure.
they were afraid I would never return back onto the mats again. I
Okay.
went through a lot of tragedies, which again, you just grow from it. Yeah, I mean, it's your perspective on them and how you take them.
Right.
Um, but like I said, and I just lost my train of thought, Pete. Man,
Well,
I have a
that's okay. Let's go back. So you have an online curriculum. So tell me about the
correct.
online curriculum. What are you
It's
teaching?
again, it's a self mastery system.
Okay.
I got a low end ticket, I got a medium ticket, and I got a high end ticket.
Right.
You know, all depending on how much you want to pay. I tell people the more you pay, the more you're going to pay attention.
Right. Right.
That's the bottom line. If there's no skin in the game, people don't
Yes.
apply themselves. And
Sure.
again, they don't have a blueprint to structure their day. And a
Right.
lot of
Right.
people need that blueprint.
Yes.
I mean, I'm somebody that I was fortunate that I had coaches over the years that helped me design my blueprint.
Right.
And like in today's day and age too, I tell a lot of young folks this, guys, if I'm not meshing with you, pick up your phone, go on to YouTube. I
Right.
mean, that's what happened with jujitsu. I mean, poor guys now can't make a living doing any seminars because you can just go on there,
Yeah.
pop in but anybody you want, any move you want, and you're going to get
Yeah.
100 videos.
Yeah.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
It's true.
Find somebody that you mesh with. If it's a Jocko Willink, if
Right.
it's a
Right.
David Goggins,
Sure.
if it's a Wes Watson, if it's whoever,
Right.
okay? Get with somebody that you mesh with and just learn.
Right.
Create the man that you want to be to give that man away to others.
Yeah. That's so well said. Well, there's somebody out there and they want to find these classes. So tell us where the classes are. Where do they live?
You're going to go on www.strength-certified with an S.
Okay.
Certified with an S.com. Matter of fact. Boom. There's my logo.
There we go. All right.
Yeah,
Strength
certified.
certified.
Yeah, with an S. Again, I'm on YouTube. I got a lot of YouTube videos. Jiu-jitsu videos are on there as well.
Okay.
I have Facebook, I have Instagram, and I don't really mess with TikTok much, but I do have a
Okay.
TikTok account too, man. Once
All
in a while,
right.
I'll get on there, watch some funny shit.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, listen.
I try not to look. I try not to fall into things that I'm not really benefited with,
Yeah,
but
sure.
it's good to laugh once in a while as well.
Yes, it is. Yes, you got to have an ice cream cone every now and again, Rick. I don't care what
I
you say,
agree
man.
100%. I
You
love
gotta.
ice cream.
Well,
I love
listen,
ice cream.
Mr. Rick Koenig, thank you for spending time with us. You are an inspiration. You have, you know, you've lived a life of honesty, man. When you tell me something you did right, you're like, hey, I stand by it. You tell me something you did wrong, you stand
Yep.
by that too. And
Yep.
55 years in, replaced hip, your body's,
Yep.
you're looking great.
Feel great.
You're walking your walk. And
That's it.
when people come to work with you, it sounds to me like they get your full attention. That,
Oh, they
you
get
know,
110%, man.
yeah. And that is a thing in life that's hard to find, you know. And
It is.
so listen, if you're listening out there and you want to find some of your own direction, you know, I'd ask you to go check out Rick Koenig, and he might be someone that you mesh with and could help you find your way. So, Mr. Rick, thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Pete, man, it was an honor again, brother. Like I said, you hit me with a bunch of knowledge too, which I love. And you and I could talk for hours. I know
That's
that.
the
So
truth. Yeah.
again, it was my honor. It was my pleasure, sir.
Thank you very much. So, look, today's modern revolutionary is Rick Koenig, and I hope that you're inspired by him. And I hope that you listened with an open mind and learned something today. Not only though do I want you to evaluate what you hear from Rick, but I hope that you feel inspired to bring your thoughts, your ideas to the world because the modern revolution needs us all.